He poured wine on me at our Christmas dinner and said, "So, for context, I've been with my boyfriend, Mark, for about 3 years. And yes, I know. Already some of you are side-eyeing the fact that I'm calling him my boyfriend even though this prompt says wife. But trust me, after the story, you'll understand why marriage wasn't even on my list of options with him. Mark's always had, let's call it a performer's personality. He loves attention, good, bad, even mildly disastrous. He's the kind of guy who will tell a story that paints him as a hero, even if the real-life version was him accidentally locking himself in his own car. Twice. With the keys outside. In the ignition. Over the last few months, though, something had been off. He'd been jumpy with his phone, deleting messages, forgetting plans we made, showing up late, and getting defensive over literally nothing. I'd ask if he was okay, and he'd say something bizarre like, "Babe, can a man have secrets?" That's healthy communication. Or, my personal favorite, "You're imagining things. I've always been this mysterious. It's part of my charm." Yeah, sure, James Bond. Anyway, fast forward to Christmas Eve. My family does a big dinner every year, warm, cozy, sparkly lights everywhere, you get the vibe. And this year, I brought Mark because I foolishly thought it might be good for him to be around normal, kind humans for a change. And honestly, for the first 20 minutes, he was decent. Laughing, smiling, half charming my grandmother with compliments that made her blush like a schoolgirl. But then something shifted. His phone buzzed. He looked at it. And I swear, his whole face changed, like someone unplugged his personality and rebooted him in jerk mode. He got snippy, loud, weirdly agitated. And I knew in my gut that something was coming. I just didn't know how big that something was going to be. Because 10 minutes later, in front of my entire family, under twinkly lights and Christmas garland, he picked up his drink, red wine, of course, and poured it over my head like we were in some low-budget villain origin movie scene. And then he said, loudly, clearly, and with this smug little smirk, "You deserve worse." That's where tonight's story truly begins. The moment that wine hit my head, the entire dining room froze. And let me tell you, my family is not a quiet family. We're loud, chaotic, opinionated, and at least 3 of us laugh like cartoon villains. But after Mark dumped that glass over me, it was so silent, I could hear the Christmas tree lights buzzing. The wine dripped down my face, into my collar, all over my sweater that I had specifically saved for this dinner. Cream-colored, cable knit, adorable, and now dyed a rich Cabernet. My mom's mouth dropped open. My dad stood so fast his chair flipped backward. My grandmother, who bakes cookies for everyone she meets, whispered, "Oh my heavens," like she had just witnessed the fall of Rome. And Mark? Oh. He leaned back in his chair like some kind of king who had just delivered a righteous sentence. He crossed his arms, raised his eyebrow, and said it again, slower this time, like he wanted it etched into my soul. "You deserve worse." I didn't move. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the table at him, which, in hindsight, deserves a medal. Instead, I wiped a drop of wine from my chin, placed my napkin calmly on the table, and asked one question. Worse for what, exactly? You would think if a man was going to publicly humiliate his girlfriend in front of her entire family, he would have at least one reason prepared. One rational explanation. One coherent sentence. But Mark blinked at me like I had just asked him to explain quantum physics using puppets. Then came his first lie of the evening. "Don't worry, there are many more coming. You know what you did," he stuttered, waving his hand vaguely. "Don't act innocent." My dad took a step forward. My mom whispered, "Not in my house," like she was preparing for holy battle. My uncle cracked his knuckles like it was WrestleMania. And yet I remained still, observing Mark like he was some strange creature who had just wandered into civilization and was being recorded for a documentary. Because in that instant I knew 2 things. He had absolutely no idea how insane he sounded. Something else, something big, was hiding behind that outburst. And I was about to find out what it was. But first, the room needed air before someone committed a felony. So I took a slow breath and said, "Mark, we're going to step outside. Now." He rolled his eyes dramatically, but he followed me. Probably because even he knew he had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The moment we stepped outside, the cold winter air hit us like a slap. Though honestly, nowhere near as sharp as the one I should have given Mark. My hair was sticking to my forehead in wine-soaked strands, and the snowflakes that landed on me immediately turned pink. Great. I looked like I had lost a fight with a holiday-themed crime scene. Mark shoved his hands into his pockets, suddenly acting like a scolded toddler instead of the wannabe villain who just poured an entire glass of Merlot on my head in front of my blood relatives. "So," I said, standing in the driveway under the glow of the Christmas lights. "Explain." He shifted from foot to foot. Classic, I didn't think this far ahead, Mark. Then, he blurted out lie number 2 of the night. I thought you were cheating on me." I blinked. Slowly. "With who, Mark?" He looked around, as if hoping the universe would hand him a name on a post-it note. Then he shrugged, and went with the most Mark answer possible. "I don't know. Someone. This man accused me of cheating with someone, and apparently that was enough justification to drown me in wine in front of my family's antique nativity set." I crossed my arms. "Okay, Then tell me what made you believe that. He squinted at me, like he was doing algebra in his head. You were smiling at your phone. Ah, yes. The universal sign of infidelity. Smiling. At my phone. I sighed. Mark, I was smiling at a gif my sister sent me of a cat falling off a table. He looked taken aback, like this was brand new information. Well, how was I supposed to know? Oh, I don't know, Mark. By asking? By talking like a normal human adult instead of reenacting a telenovela meltdown? I took a step closer. Mark, do you really expect me to believe that you humiliated me in front of my entire family because of a cat gif? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He was buffering. Then, he threw out lie number 3. Okay, fine. It wasn't cheating. It's just you've been distant. I laughed. Actually laughed. I've been distant? Mark, you've been dodging my calls, sneaking out early, deleting messages. That's because, he interrupted, lifting a finger with dramatic flair, I've been planning a surprise for you. A surprise. This man who just ruined Christmas dinner. This man who accused me of smiling adultery. This man who poured wine on me like he was blessing the crops. Was supposedly planning a surprise. What kind of surprise? I asked. He hesitated. And that's when I saw it. The guilt. The panic. The oh no, I just backed myself into a corner face. Because Mark hadn't prepared a surprise. Mark hadn't prepared an excuse. Mark hadn't prepared anything. He was making it up as he went like always. And suddenly it clicked. Something was happening behind the scenes. Something he didn't want me to know. Something he was trying very, very badly to hide. And I was about to find out exactly what that something was. Mark's face was doing that thing it always did right before one of his lies crumbled. His eyebrows pulled together, his lips pursed, and his eyes darted around like he was checking to see if anyone else had a better excuse he could borrow. So, I said slowly, what was the surprise, Mark? He sniffed, crossed his arms, uncrossed them, shoved his hands back into his pockets, and finally blurted. It was, a proposal. I stared at him, not because I believed him, but because I wanted to see how confidently he would dig this grave. A proposal, I repeated. Yes, he said loudly, as if volume equals truth. I was going to propose tonight. Mind you, this was the same man who had just poured red wine on my head like he was christening a ship. Yes, Mark. Very romantic. Oh, I asked. Where's the ring? His face went blank. Ring. Yeah. You know, the thing you need for a proposal. Oh, right. That ring. He patted his pockets like he expected one to magically appear. It's being resized. Yeah. The ring is at the jeweler's. Getting resized. For your tiny, princess fingers. My fingers are not tiny. He once called them regular human-sized French fry grabbers. Great, I said, not blinking. Which jeweler? He swallowed. Tiffany. I smiled. Tiffany doesn't do resizing before purchase, Mark. He froze. Gotcha. He stuttered. Double, maybe it wasn't Tiffany. Maybe it was Tiffano. Tifano. I offered helpfully. Yes, that one. There is no Tifano. Unless there's a back alley store behind a dumpster somewhere that I've never heard of. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. Mark, you weren't proposing. You were hiding something. So tell me what it is. He inhaled sharply, panic flickering across his face. You're overreacting. That's lie number 4. I cut in. Try again. His jaw clenched. And then suddenly he snapped. Fine, he shouted. You want to know? You really want to know? Yes, I said calmly. He threw his hands in the air. It was the stress. I blinked. The stress of what? He pointed dramatically at the house. Of Christmas. These decorations. The lights. The tree. Your family. The food. It's too much. My family has never been accused of being stressful. Loud, yes. Stressful, no. The most stressful thing in that house was a burned batch of cookies earlier. So you poured wine on me because Christmas stressed you out? He nodded rapidly. Yes. Because I'm overwhelmed by your holiday spirit. I just stared at him. This man was unraveling like a cheaply made sweater. And that's when the front door opened behind us. My sister stepped out, holding something in her hand. Something small, black, rectangular. Mark's phone. She held it up and said, you might want to see what was blowing up his notifications all through dinner. Mark froze. The color drained from his face. And suddenly everything started making sense. Mark's face drained so fast it looked like someone had pulled the plug on his entire bloodstream. My sister walked toward us holding his phone like it was radioactive evidence, which, in a way, it was. She handed it to me. It's unlocked, she said grimly. He tried to put in the wrong passcode 4 times, then walked away like it was going to fix itself. Classic Mark. Failing at basic technology and hoping the universe would bail him out. I shot him one last look. He was sweating, shifting, twitching like a cornered raccoon, and then I turned the screen toward me. And I swear, if my hair wasn't already wet from the wine, it would have stood straight up. The lock screen was covered in notifications. From one person. Over and over and over again. Babe, where are you? You said you'd tell her tonight. Don't chicken out again. You promised you'd end it before Christmas. I'm not doing the new year as the side girl. Mark, pick up the phone. And then the final one. If you don't tell her right now, I will. My stomach dropped. Not because I was surprised, but because suddenly every weird behavior over the last few months snapped into focus like a completed puzzle. The secrecy, the defensiveness, the phone flipping, the gaslighting, the bizarre outburst at dinner. It wasn't stress. It wasn't a non-existent proposal. It wasn't Christmas decorations overwhelming his fragile soul. It was another woman. I lifted my head slowly, meeting his eyes. He was shaking. Actually shaking. Mark, I said quietly. Who is she? His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. He was malfunctioning, like a cheap robot whose batteries were dying. It's my cousin, he attempted. I raised an eyebrow. A cousin who calls you babe. He swallowed. We're close? A cousin you're cheating with? He gasped dramatically. How dare you accuse me of? Mark, I said flatly. She literally said you promised to break up with me before Christmas. He blinked, stared at the snow, then muttered. Maybe she's confused. Confused about what? I asked. Her own relationship with you? He lifted a finger like he was about to deliver a grand philosophical defense and instead said, she's Italian. I blinked. What does that have to do with anything? They're passionate people, he insisted. Mark, you cheated. He pressed his palms together like he was about to plead a case in court. Okay. Maybe I emotionally cheated. She called you babe. She's affectionate. She said she's done being the side girl. Maybe she meant the side of the family girl? Mark. He exhaled dramatically, tossing his head back. Fine. Maybe there was a tiny bit of physical cheating. But you're being really crazy about this. Crazy. There it was. The classic, I'm guilty, so I'll call you crazy tactic. I didn't yell. I didn't slap him. I didn't set him on fire and roast marshmallows over his burning lies. I simply said, give me the full truth. Right. Now. He rubbed his hands over his face. Then he said the words that made every piece of the night fall into place. It wasn't supposed to go down like this. And that's when I realized. He had planned something for Christmas. Just not with me. When Mark finally spoke again, he looked like a kid who'd just been told to explain why the family goldfish was missing, while goldfish flakes were still stuck to his lips. I wasn't planning to break up with you tonight, he whispered, as if volume would somehow make this less awful. I just got overwhelmed. Overwhelmed by what? I asked. He motioned vaguely to the table full of my family, who were all now locked onto us with the intensity of people watching the season finale of a reality show. Everything, he hissed. All the food and the decorations, and your mom asking about grandkids every 30 seconds. She asked one time, Mark. Well, it felt like 30. I stared at him, waiting for him to get to the part where cheating on me made sense. He avoided eye contact so hard, he was practically looking into another dimension. Okay, I said. Start from the beginning. Who is she? He inhaled dramatically, like he was preparing to deliver a tragic monologue. She's someone I met at the gym. I blinked. Mark, the only time you go to the gym is when they hand out those free smoothie samples. He glared at me. That one time counts. Mark. He sighed, wilting. Okay, fine, she works at the gym. She teaches the fitness thing. What fitness thing? The one with the ropes? And jumping? And sweating. Mark, that's literally any fitness class. He waved his hands. Whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is, she's really supportive and she listens to me and she understands my needs. I raised an eyebrow. What needs are those? He hesitated. To feel appreciated? Appreciated? I do everything for you. I pack your lunch. I remind you to pay bills. I call your dentist because you're allergic to talking on the phone. He folded his arms defensively. That's not an allergy, it's a condition. It's laziness. A psychological condition. I stared at him. He stared back like he'd just won the argument. Anyway, he continued, Sabrina. Oh, so she has a name now. He froze, caught. I mean, the girl from the gym maybe said I deserved someone who saw my potential. Oh, and what potential is that? I asked. He puffed up proudly. She says I could be an influencer. I blinked slowly. Influencer of what? Motivation. Inspiration. Positivity. You posted a video of yourself trying to backflip and kicking a hole in our microwave. That was comedy, he insisted. You were crying. He waved me off. People love vulnerability. I stared up at the ceiling, reconsidering every decision that had led me to this moment. So, I said, focusing back on him, you cheated on me because a gym girl told you that you could be a motivational influencer? And he added, holding up a finger like this was crucial, because you don't support my dreams. What dreams, Mark? My future brand. Of what? He straightened, chest puffed out with delusional purpose. Mark Mornings. What? It's like a lifestyle thing, he said proudly. Wake up with Mark Mornings. A coffee with Mark Mornings. Positive affirmations with Mark Mornings. You don't wake up until noon. That's still morning somewhere. I let out the longest exhale of my life. So you weren't overwhelmed, I said. You weren't stressed. You didn't accidentally pour a drink on my head. He winced. You did it because you didn't want to tell me you're cheating on me with someone who thinks you can become a motivational lifestyle brand. Don't say it like it's stupid, he protested. It is stupid. He gasped, scandalized. And just when I thought the night couldn't get more ridiculous, Mark's phone buzzed again. Loud. Vibrating across the wooden dining table like an angry wasp. Everyone's eyes snapped to the screen. Sabrina, did you tell her yet? I'm outside. Outside. My entire family turned to the windows. And sure enough, there she was, standing in the snow, wearing leggings and a sports bra. In December, holding a tiny gym bag like she was ready for a photo shoot. Mark whispered, "Oh, God, she actually came." I turned back to him. "Yeah, Mark, I think it's finally time we all meet Sabrina." So, at this point, my entire family is frozen at the window like we're reenacting a Victorian ghost story. And outside, Sabrina stands there in leggings, sports bra, high ponytail, and a giant ring light strapped to her bag like she's about to film a holiday fitness burn video in the middle of our driveway. In December, in the snow, at night, my dad muttered, "Is she cold-blooded?" Mark, meanwhile, looks like he's about to spontaneously evaporate. "I didn't think she'd actually come," he whispers urgently, like Sabrina materialized out of thin air and wasn't clearly responding to his "I'm telling her tonight" messages. "Mark," I said flatly, "she's outside because she thought you were leaving with her." He flinched like I'd fired a cannon at his chest. "I didn't say that," he insisted. "Not like in those exact words, in a way that could be taken exactly like that." "Show me your messages." He held his phone to his chest like a Victorian maiden protecting her pearls. "No, they're private. Between partners." "Partners?" I repeated. "Say that again." He coughed. Between two adults who are exploring possibilities." My mom stood up so fast her chair screeched. "Oh, please," she snapped. "Just go let the half-naked fitness elf inside before she gets hypothermia." So Mark, panicking and sweaty, stumbles to the front door. He opens it, and Sabrina glides in like she's entering the Hunger Games arena. Hair perfect, leggings vacuum sealed, skin glowing like she'd been personally blessed by the Instagram algorithm. She looked around at all of us, my parents, siblings, little cousins, the dog, then flashed a bright influencer smile. "Hi everyone," she chirped. "I'm Sabrina, Mark's coach." "My dad." "Coach of what?" She winked. "Life." Silence. I swear, even the Christmas tree was judging her. Mark, trying to salvage his dignity, put a hand on her shoulder, except she immediately slipped out of his grip like she'd been coated in Teflon. Then she looked at me. "Oh my gosh," she cooed, eyes widening. "Are you the Yex?" I smiled sweetly. "No, but you might be." Mark's soul visibly left his body. Sabrina blinked, then leaned in and whispered way too loudly. "So, did he tell you about us?" "Not enough," I said. "Why don't you fill in the blanks?" Mark jumped. No. Sabrina, babe, sweetie. Babe, sweetie. My family collectively inhaled like we'd all suddenly turned into a choir. Sabrina shrugged and pulled out her phone. "Well, I just assumed she knew since you told me you were emotionally free and basically single and just staying at her house until your brand launches." A pause. A full dramatic pause. I turned to Mark. "You're staying with me until what?" He swallowed hard. "My brand. Mark Mornings?" I asked. He perked up. "You remembered." The room went dead silent. Even Sabrina stared at him like he was a malfunctioning Alexa. Suddenly, she took a step back from him. "You told me you owned your house," she said slowly. He froze. "And that you had a studio," she added. He froze harder. "And a team of editors." He froze into a human statue. Then louder. "Mark, do you even have a job?" My entire family turned toward Mark like a firing squad. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I am between opportunities." I burst out laughing. I couldn't help it. I genuinely could not. Because the absurdity reached a level where it was either laugh or scream. Sabrina blinked at me, betrayed. "You mean he lied?" I shrugged. "Welcome to Mark Mornings." The dog barked as if agreeing. Sabrina stomped toward him. "You told me you were buying me a Peloton." Mark, sweating like a broken sprinkler. I was gonna finance it." My dad whispered. "He can't even finance a sandwich." Sabrina threw her hands up. "I'm done." "Done." "I thought you were successful." Mark squeaked. "I'm success adjacent." She turned and stormed out of the house, still wearing only a sports bra in the snow. Mark watched her leave, his mouth open. Then he turned to me and said, dead serious, "So, do you want to, start over?" My entire family laughed. Out loud. At the same time. And for the first time all night, I felt my anger melt into something else. Clarity. Relief. Freedom. Because this wasn't a heartbreak. It was a wake-up call. So Sabrina storms out into the snow like a deranged Christmas fitness fairy, slamming the door so hard a wreath falls off the wall. Mark just stands there staring after her, mouth open, eyes glassy, like someone told him Santa isn't real and canceled his Disney Plus subscription. Then he turns to me with this desperate, watery look. The look of a man who just realized he is homeless, jobless, brandless, and very much girlfriendless. Babe, he says softly. Please don't do this. Do what? I ask. Leave me when I need you most. My brother snorted so loud, he choked on his sparkling cider. I crossed my arms. Mark, you dumped a drink over my head. At Christmas dinner. Then said I deserved worse. Then admitted to cheating. Then brought your side chick to my parents' house. In a snowstorm. Wearing gym clothes. Mark nodded slowly, as if acknowledging these were indeed some events that had occurred. Then he said, with the confidence of a man who'd never once been right. Yeah, but that was before I realized you were the real one. The real one. The way my cousin started muttering, no he didn't, and this is better than Netflix, made me want to dissolve into the floor. I took a deep breath. Mark, I said, no. He blinked rapidly. No. No. But you don't understand, he said, frantic now. She left because she thought I lied to her. But you know me. You know I don't lie. The entire room went. My mom legit whispered, is he concussed? Mark lifted his hands in a pleading gesture. I only lie when I need to lie. Batman logic. Incredible. And I lied to her, because she couldn't handle the real me. What real you? I asked. He pointed at himself proudly. This. All of this. He gestured to his stained holiday sweater, his lopsided haircut. He let Sabrina trim it for content. His mismatched socks, the emotional wreckage that was dripping off him like condensation. My true self, he whispered. My dad muttered. Return it. Mark walked closer to me, voice cracking. Babe, please. I need a place to stay tonight. And maybe the next night. And maybe for a few months until I get back on my feet. And maybe until Mark Mornings takes off. So, forever? I asked. He opened his mouth to argue. But then, the fire alarm goes off. Loud. Piercing. Screeching. Everyone screams. We look around wildly. And Mark is standing by the kitchen doorway holding the fire extinguisher like a toddler holding a forbidden object. What did you do? I shouted. I thought it would be dramatic if I made an exit smoke effect. Mark. I didn't know it would set OFF anything. Mark. It said pull to activate, so I thought it meant activate the theatrical powder. That's not theatrical powder, you lunatic. My mom grabbed the extinguisher from him, coughing. My dad opened all the windows. My cousins ran around like screaming elves. The dog sprinted under the table. Mark just stood there in the chaos, white extinguisher dust settling in his hair like dandruff. What? He asked, genuinely confused. Why is everyone mad at me? And that was my clarity moment. The moment I realized. This man didn't just ruin Christmas. He didn't just cheat. He didn't just humiliate me. He was a walking disaster zone in human form. A living hazard. A two-legged warning label. And I had been dating him. On purpose. I looked at him, this powder-covered, panicking, delusional, jobless mess. And I finally said the words I should have said a long time ago. Mark, we're done. He froze. Eyes wide. Mouth trembling. Babe, he whispered. You don't mean that. But I did. For the first time ever. I really truly did. The fire alarm finally died down, leaving the house filled with extinguisher dust, the faint smell of burnt ham, thanks to Mark's theatrical exit idea, and the stunned silence of 20 relatives trying to figure out whether to laugh, cry, or call a priest. Mark stood in the middle of it all, looking like a ghost that had crawled out of a baking soda factory. Why, you're really breaking up with me? He croaked. Yes, I said, steady and clear. He blinked rapidly. But, babe. Stop calling me that. But, sweetie. Stop that too. But, my little peppermint. My uncle gagged. I nearly threw a napkin at him. Mark stepped toward me, hands trembling. No. You can't do this. Not after everything we've been through. What have we been through, Mark? I asked. He inhaled dramatically, like he was about to monologue in a telenovela. You saw me at my lowest lows. You watched me during my worst haircut phase. You supported my dream when everyone else laughed. I never supported that dream. You didn't stop me, because I thought you'd get tired after 2 days and move on to your next hyperfixation. He gasped. That's not supportive energy. I threw my hands up. Oh my God. Sensing the moment dropping into full tragic comedy, Mark suddenly turned to my family like they were a jury he needed to sway. Guys, he said, sweeping his arms wide. Is this what you want? For her to give up on me? My entire family deadpanned back at him. My dad. Yes. My mom. Absolutely. My brother. 100%. My aunt. Please go home. The dog barked once, which I took as full agreement. Mark clutched his chest like we'd stabbed him with a candy cane. You're all heartless. My mom stepped forward, hands on her hips. No, Mark. We're tired. Mark looked around desperately. You're making a mistake. She can't do better than me. My grandma, who had been quiet this entire time, slowly stood from her seat. She fixed him with the kind of stare only an 80-year-old matriarch possesses. Oh, honey, she said gently. She already has. The room went OHHH like we were on the set of a talk show. Mark staggered back as if she'd slapped him with divine truth. Then, because he is Mark and Mark's brain operates on pure chaos, he suddenly spun toward the door and shouted, "Fine. I don't need any of you. I'll go live with Sabrina. She wants me. My dad, she left. My brother, in a blizzard. My sister, in a bra. My grandma, bless her heart, but she's not coming back." Mark faltered. Well, she'll want me again when she hears my plan." "What plan?" I asked. He puffed himself up proudly. "I'm going to start the Mark Mornings brand tonight." "Tonight?" I repeated. "It's 10 p.m. on Christmas." He nodded confidently. "Yes. Christmas is very motivational." My cousin whispered, "Is he having a stroke?" Mark, apparently deciding he had won this imaginary argument, stomped to the door, throwing it open with the flourish of a man who thinks he's about to make the most dramatic exit in history, and immediately slipped on the snow-covered porch. Just, legs up, arms flailing. Splat. My little cousin screamed laughing. My dad muttered, "Frostbite builds character." Mark scrambled up, covered in snow, disheveled, and humiliated. He glared back at me from the yard like a feral raccoon. "You're gonna regret this," he shouted. "I doubt it. I mean it. You're gonna come crawling back when you see my success." I crossed my arms. "What success?" "My inevitable rise," he said dramatically. "In what?" "In everything." Then, he dramatically stormed down the driveway. Except, storming quickly became slipping every 4 steps, until he finally disappeared into the snowy darkness like a confused penguin trying to migrate for the first time. We stood there watching through the window until he was gone. No one spoke for a solid 10 seconds. Then my grandma clapped her hands lightly. "Well," she said, "who wants dessert?" And just like that, everything felt lighter, clearer, almost peaceful. Mark was out of my life. And I wasn't sad. I was free. I woke up the next morning expecting to feel hollow, broken, devastated. Instead, I felt light, like someone had unstrapped a talking, cheating sandbag from my emotional shoulders. The house was quiet. My hair still smelled faintly like the theatrical powder Mark unleashed on us. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. I stretched, yawned, checked the time, and that's when I noticed my phone. 27 missed calls, 14 text messages, 3 voicemails, all from Mark. Of course, naturally, predictably. The first text said, "Babe, I'm freezing." Answer. Second, I slipped again. Third, "Are you ignoring me?" Fourth, "Why?" Fifth, "You know what, fine. I don't need this." Sixth, 2 minutes later, "Please don't be mad. I think I sprained something." I scrolled, half laughing, half exasperated. This man, this absolute walking snow globe of disaster. The icing on the cake? The last text. "Can you come pick me up? Sabrina won't let me in." Oh no. I clicked the voicemails. Voicemail 1, 1:13 a.m. "Babe, this is actually really dangerous weather. The snow is, like, pointy. Come outside. I'm cold. Babe." Voicemail 2, 1:25 a.m. "Okay, fine. I'm at Sabrina's. But she changed her Wi-Fi password and told me to go home. I think she hates me. Call me." Voicemail 3, 2:02 a.m. "I love you. Also, can you send me the garage keypad code? I forgot it again." I stared at the screen, then started laughing so hard I wheezed. My mom poked her head into the room. "You okay?" I held up my phone, still wheezing. He tried to break into Sabrina's house. She locked him out. My mom blinked, then shrugged. Well, sometimes miracles happen on Christmas. I went downstairs for coffee, still chuckling. My dad was reading the paper, like we didn't have a full meltdown the night before. "Morning," he said. "Your ex-boyfriend fell into my birdbath at 6 a.m. I choked on my coffee. "What?" He nodded casually. "Yeah, I saw a shape out there. Thought it was a raccoon." "Nope, just Mark." I turned on the porch light, and he ran off. Ran off where? Still in the neighborhood, probably. Like a confused deer. Before I could respond, there was a loud bang, bang, bang on the front door. My entire family froze mid-breakfast. My dad sighed deeply. That better not be who I think it is. I walked to the door, dread rising even though I wasn't sad, scared, or conflicted. I was just already exhausted by whatever new chaos Mark was about to unleash. I opened the door, and there he was. Frost in his hair, eyes wild, wearing one shoe, one glove, and holding a crumpled wreath he apparently tried to use as a scarf. "Babe," he gasped, stumbling inside. "Thank God you're awake." "You shouldn't be here," I said immediately. "I know," he groaned. "But Sabrina's dad threatened to call the cops on me." My dad. I like this Sabrina's dad. Mark dramatically flopped onto the floor like a fainting goat. "I'm losing everything," he wailed. My mom walked past him with a muffin. "You already lost everything, sweetheart." He grabbed my ankle like a tragic movie character. "You can't abandon me. You're the love of my life. You cheated on me. That was before I realized you were my soulmate. You dumped a drink on me. I was overwhelmed. You started a fire alarm on purpose. I was expressing myself. You tried to move in with your side chick. I was being optimistic. I stepped back from him. He stared up at me, eyes huge. Please just give me one more chance. And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't feel tempted. I didn't feel confused. I didn't feel guilty. I felt done. Completely. Utterly. Beautifully done. I'm not giving you another chance, I said softly. We're over. And that's the healthiest decision I've made for myself in years. Mark blinked, then looked around at my family, as if expecting someone to object. Nobody did. My grandma even gave him a thumbs down. I'm serious, I said. You need to leave. Mark's lip trembled. Fine, he whispered. He slowly got up, shuffled to the door, opened it, then paused dramatically. You'll regret this, he said. No, I replied. I won't. He nodded sadly, then stepped outside, and immediately slipped in the same icy spot as last night. He screamed. A crow cawed. The universe applauded. The door shut. And just like that, silence, relief, peace. I stood there for a long moment, breathing in the calm. My dad clapped me on the shoulder. Well, he said, Merry Christmas. And for the first time in a long, long time, it actually was. Just as I was finally savoring the calm, the doorbell rang again. My heart skipped, not with anxiety this time, but with that weird premonition you get when you know chaos is about to strike again. I opened the door. Sabrina. Standing there, fully clothed this time, hair perfect, carrying a little Christmas gift bag. She looked at me, then at the snowy mess of a driveway, then at the spot where Mark had gone sliding like a cartoon character. Hi, she said cautiously. I just wanted to apologize. I didn't know he was your boyfriend. And, oh well, he's insane. I blinked. You're telling me, I said slowly, that the guy who poured wine on me at Christmas dinner lied to both of us? She nodded grim. I literally thought he was single. And then he promised me he'd leave you before Christmas. He makes up things as he goes. I let out a laugh I didn't realize I'd been holding in. A genuine, relieved laugh. You have no idea, I said. Welcome to Mark Mornings. She laughed too, this time nervous, this time real. We stood in the doorway for a moment, silently agreeing that yes, this man was a disaster we both dodged. I just wanted to clear the air, she said. He said you were overreacting, but yeah. No. Yeah. No, I agreed. She smiled faintly. Merry Christmas. And good luck. With everything. Thank you, I said. Same to you. And may your leggings always stay dry in December. She left, and the quiet returned. I closed the door, leaned against it, and finally felt a kind of closure I didn't know I needed. Not only had I survived the worst Christmas dinner in history, but I also realized I didn't need Mark. I didn't need the chaos. I didn't need someone who thought pouring wine on me was acceptable behavior. My family came over, offering hugs, chocolate, and sarcastic remarks about Mark Morning's empire. I laughed. Truly laughed. And in that laughter, I found a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, it really felt like Christmas. After the whirlwind of Mark's disasters and Sabrina's brief cameo, I finally had the chance to sit down and process everything. I brewed a fresh cup of coffee, wrapped myself in a blanket, and just let it all sink in. The chaos, the humiliation, the sheer absurdity of the last 24 hours. I realized something important. I had spent so much time trying to fix Mark, trying to understand him, rationalize his behavior, and make excuses for him, that I had completely forgotten to prioritize myself. I had allowed his drama to overshadow my happiness, my boundaries, and my self-respect. I thought about the way he poured wine on me and said, "You deserve worse." The way he lied about his side girl, his fake proposal, the imaginary brand, the fire alarm, the snow-sliding escapes, then finally, I saw the pattern. Mark wasn't just chaotic. He was selfish. He didn't care about me as a partner. He cared about himself and the performance of his life, and anyone who got in the way, including me, was expendable. And yet, through all of this, I noticed something surprising. I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel defeated. I felt strong, free, empowered. I had survived humiliation in front of my family, deceit, betrayal, and theatrical disasters, and I was still standing. Still me. I also realized that I didn't need to punish Mark or prove anything to him. The universe had already done that. He had humiliated himself, alienated everyone who mattered, and slid down a snowy driveway into oblivion, literally and metaphorically. He didn't need my revenge. Life was already delivering consequences. I made a decision. I would not look back. I would not answer his texts or calls. I would not feel guilty for choosing myself over someone who repeatedly demonstrated he was incapable of mutual respect. And I would embrace my own life fully, unburdened by someone else's chaos. I took out my journal and wrote down 3 lessons I would carry forward. Respect is non-negotiable. If someone intentionally humiliates you, cheats, or lies, their behavior is a reflection of them, not you. Boundaries protect your peace. Saying no, walking away, and protecting yourself isn't cruel, it's necessary. Humor is a secret weapon. If you can laugh at the absurdity while standing firm in your worth, you reclaim power. By the end of the morning, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. The house smelled like burnt ham and coffee. The dog was happily rolling in the carpet, and my family was still buzzing from the Christmas chaos. But for once, I was present, grounded, and in control. I knew Mark's theatrics would eventually fade from my mind, replaced with stories I could laugh at, because I had survived him, and I had chosen myself. The days after Christmas were surprisingly peaceful. No frantic texts, no calls, no Mark Morning's motivational updates. Just quiet. Just freedom. And let me tell you, that quiet was blissful. I started small. I deleted his number, blocked his messages, and even unfollowed him on every social platform. Each click, each block, felt like lifting a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. Then came the bigger steps. I reconnected with friends I had neglected because Mark's chaos always demanded center stage. I took long walks in the morning, not because of some Mark Morning's routine, but because I wanted to breathe. I cooked meals I actually liked. I watched shows that made me laugh without eye rolls. I even started journaling again, writing down thoughts, feelings, and dreams that had been buried under the stress of someone else's drama. And the best part? I started laughing. Really laughing. Not just out of relief, but out of pure joy. Every memory of Mark slipping in the snow, slipping on excuses, and nearly setting off the fire alarm turned into little bursts of humor that reminded me how insane it all was. And the more I laughed, the lighter I felt. I also learned to trust myself again. I realized that I knew my worth before, and I didn't need validation from anyone, least of all someone who tried to humiliate me in front of my family. My intuition, my boundaries, and my ability to walk away had saved me from what could have been years of misery. I started planning things for myself, short trips, small adventures, and even a weekend spa getaway I'd always put off. It wasn't about Mark Mornings or anyone else. It was about me. Fully me. And slowly but surely, my confidence grew. I stood taller, spoke louder, and smiled more. Not because I had to, but because I finally remembered who I was when no one else's chaos was dragging me down. I even laughed again at the thought of Mark. He was a lesson in absurdity, a reminder of what not to tolerate. And that's powerful. By mid-January, I realized something important. Being single wasn't lonely. It was freeing. And freedom? Freedom is priceless. Looking back, I can honestly say that entire holiday disaster, Mark, the wine, Sabrina, the fire alarm, the snow, was a brutal but invaluable lesson. I learned more about myself in those 48 hours than I had in months of overthinking our relationship. First, I realized that self-respect isn't negotiable. If someone humiliates you, lies to you, or cheats on you, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of theirs. Mark's chaos was never my fault, and walking away didn't make me weak. It made me strong. Second, I learned the importance of boundaries. I had spent years bending, excusing, and rationalizing Mark's behavior, all in the name of keeping peace or being understanding. But peace without respect isn't peace. It's silence in the face of abuse. Saying no, setting limits, and walking away was an act of courage and self-love. Third, humor is a secret weapon. When your ex is slipping on ice, being snow-covered, and insisting he's the next motivational influencer, laughing doesn't just lighten the moment. It gives you power over it. It reminds you that their chaos is theirs to own, not yours to suffer. And finally, I learned to prioritize my happiness. I'm not just my relationship status. I'm my dreams, my boundaries, my joy. I can nurture friendships, pursue passions, and create a life I actually enjoy without anyone else dictating my worth. So, for anyone reading this who has ever been humiliated, lied to, or cheated on, trust your instincts. Set boundaries. Protect your peace. And don't be afraid to laugh at the absurdity, because someday, you'll look back and realize that what felt like chaos was actually your gateway to freedom. Mark taught me a lot, just not the lessons he thought he was teaching. And that's okay. Because now, I've learned the most important lesson of all. I deserve better. And I'll never settle for less. A few weeks later, I finally got the closure I didn't know I needed. Mark tried texting again. Short, pathetic messages like, "Can we talk? I just want one more chance. You don't understand me." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Then one Saturday morning, there was a knock on the door. My heart skipped for a split second, not with excitement, but with a memory flash of the holiday chaos. It was Mark. He looked smaller, defeated. Snow still on his coat. It was mid-January. The man had clearly given up on timing, eyes darting nervously like a child caught stealing cookies. "Look," he started, voice wavering. "I just wanted to apologize. I know I messed up." I took a deep breath, letting the moment linger. I could have yelled, laughed, rolled my eyes, or blocked the door. But instead, I did something that felt empowering. I let him speak, fully aware I wouldn't be persuaded. He rambled on about mistakes, misunderstandings, and how he didn't realize what he had until it was gone. Classic Mark. When he finally stopped, I smiled. Calmly. Clearly. "Mark," I said, "we're done. This isn't up for debate. You've made your choices. And I'm done being part of your chaos. It's over." He blinked, looked like the wind had been knocked out of him. I understand," he mumbled. I nodded. Then I did the most satisfying thing. I closed the door. The click of the lock felt like the sound of a weight dropping. like the universe itself had exhaled. I leaned against the door for a moment, smiling to myself. The house was quiet. The snow sparkled outside. My family had gone on with their lives, laughing, loving, and creating normal memories. And I, finally, was free. Free from humiliation. Free from lies. Free from a man who mistook drama for love. For the first time in years, I felt fully, completely, unapologetically myself. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and watched the snow fall. And I realized something beautiful. Mark's chaos didn't break me. It only revealed my strength. And from that day on, I promised myself, no more excuses, no more tolerating disrespect, and no more settling. Only me. Only my happiness. Only my peace. Because some lessons come wrapped in wine, snow, and absurdity, and I learned mine the hard way. But I survived. And more importantly, I thrived.